Welcome to Veterans Connected, where maintenance and reliability expert and military veteran Eric Bevavino connects with fellow veterans in industry during each episode, where they exchange their experiences and discuss the transition from the military to industry and the paths and resources that led them to where they are today. The Veterans Connected podcast is proudly produced by the industry's leading network and learning community, Mobius Connect. Eric, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bevavino, host of the Mobius Connect podcast, focused on connecting military veterans to the maintenance and reliability community. Our aim here is to bridge the understanding gap between the military and civilian worlds, thereby improving the veteran transition journey and ultimately providing hope and a helping hand to any of our brothers and sisters out there struggling to find their way. We'll do this by interviewing veterans who have successfully made it through. For this session, we've chosen to interview one such Navy veteran, Mike Moody, whose fascinating and patriotic story is a must listen for anyone interested in joining us on this mission. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Eric. This is great. When you told me about this, I was so excited. The whole transition piece and finding your way in the civilian world, I know is just a struggle, and I had my ups and downs, and I'm sure we're digging into that here, but I was just excited to be able to be a part of this, and hopefully if there's even one person out there that can take some nuggets from this, it'll help.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is also our first double-digit podcast, so you are number 10.
Fantastic. Number 10. I gotta take that.
That's right. If you haven't been a 10 before in your life, this is the day, my friend.
Time.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate it. Well, thanks, Mike. And why don't we start with what you're doing today, who you are, what, and then we'll dial it back a few years and see where you started.
Sure. Yeah. I am currently a general manager for Rite Aid, running a distribution center in Syracuse, New York. Have about 650 or so folks between my employees and contractors that are in and out of the two buildings that are a part of this DC. Been with Rite Aid for about 8 months, and just really digging in and getting after productivity gains and getting a growing and improving culture around here. So it's been a lot of hard work and exciting, and got a great team here that we're building on.
Fantastic. So it's more of an operations focus, right? Is that what you've spent most of your civilian career doing? Operations type stuff?
It has been, yeah. So supply chain, I would summarize it, though it's been a mix, but most of it has been in supply chain, which has included manufacturing, a little bit of sourcing in there, and then this distribution and fulfillment. Always a component, though, in the operations piece of the equipment that you have to have. I know it's a piece of what we'll get into, but you got to have equipment that's working. And ironically enough, I'm just hired a new facilities manager that's going to come to us with some great experience, and excited about getting that person on board and helping us raise the bar and our equipment here. So you always got to have it.
Just like the Navy can't complete the mission without equipment that's reliable and safe and well-maintained, right?
Absolutely.
Well, good. Now, where did you grow up? I know I met you in Pennsylvania, and I think you live in Pennsylvania here too, currently. Did you grow up in PA, or did you grow up somewhere else?
I grew up in northern Michigan.
Okay.
It's called up north now, but about 15 miles from Mackinac City. So big summer tourist area. It is town of about 6,000. So, grew up around lumber way back in the day, and had a paper mill when I was growing up there, Procter and Gamble. So smaller town, not a lot going on, but great outdoors and the water, just beautiful area. So spent a lot of times outdoor and on the water, swimming and boating and fishing and all that. So through the years.
Well, it's probably not too dissimilar from Syracuse. That's where you're operating up there today. So, yeah, good times.
Yes.
Is that where Ted Nugent is from up there too, northern Michigan?
So be fun to meet him someday.
You got to be careful on a good day. Yeah.
There's a few, you get off track there, but Bob Seger used to hunt. It would be seen in hometown, but a lot of those 70s rockers, those connections up that direction.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit south of there, but he had the connections.
So you grew up in northern Michigan, and did you have any friends or relatives that were in the military? I mean, how did the early years end up leading you into the Navy?
It's interesting, how that led to it. It wasn't like something I dreamt of or thought about or talked about. I had a grandfather who was a World War II vet. He talked a little bit about that, knew that. I had another grandfather who served as in law enforcement, and so that kind of service mindset was there. My dad was a teacher. Lost him early on in my life, but that
sorry to hear that
piece was there. But the a Navy recruiter, the college prospects really weren't there, and not having a whole lot of money for college, and a Navy recruiter talked to me, and of course, as they do, and gave the good pitch. I'd be driving a Corvette in a few years, and I still don't have that Corvette.
Looking like Tom Cruise, pre-Maverick program, yeah.
So saying that, but it was the engineering piece, the nuke power, that really attracted me. But at the same time, there was the Top Gun was the summer before my senior year of high school, and we just took my son to see the new Top Gun Maverick. But Top Gun was there, and that made the Navy seem. I was part of that crowd that it made the Navy seem really fantastic. Little Kenny Loggins, Highway to the Danger Zone. So yeah.
Great recruiting video. It inspired me as well. I was in I think I was a couple of years ahead of you. I might have been between freshman and sophomore year in college at Penn State. I had already gotten into NROTC there, but hadn't yet had to choose my path. I'd always wanted to be an aviator, but my eyes were not good enough. And then I did the spatial aptitude test, and it wasn't bad enough to keep me out of the diving community, but it was bad enough to keep me out of the aviation community. So that fell apart kind of midstream, but that's funny. We grew up in sort of the same generation. Got to see Maverick over Memorial Day, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah, watching those F-18s, getting that good, and listening to folks go. Of course, I didn't make it there. Didn't make it as an aviator because of the eyesight as well. I was in the backseater community, NFO, Naval Flight Officer, for a little while. I don't know if we ever talked about that. And it was during the drawdown, and it got really extended. So as it wasn't moving forward, everybody was in holding pattern, if you will, and not really moving forward in the program very fast. And I just made a decision to go surface warfare and kind of move the commitment and career forward. Had gotten married, and I couldn't be a pilot, and being married as a backseater didn't seem like a good. I know that's a hard concept to go to, but didn't seem like a good option.
No, I totally get it, man. I totally get it. Look, hey, Goose didn't fare so well, right? And
Goose died. Flight of the Intruder. Who died? The NFO, the Naval Flight Officer. So it's always the Naval Flight Officer that was buying it in the movies. So I decided maybe I should do something else. So I had a lot of fun then. It was surface warfare and learned a ton. It was great.
Sure. So segue from high school and seeing Top Gun between your junior and senior year, and where did you go next? You talked to the recruiter. You were fascinated by nuclear power. It sounds like they signed you up for aviation, or did you go? You went to the Naval Academy, didn't you?
I was a nuke power machinist mate.
Okay.
High school, went to boot camp in Orlando, and then nuke power school back then was down in Orlando as well. That whole community has changed. Where that base is at now is you can't recognize it. But anyways, nuke power machinist mate, went through all the training, which all of that between boot camp and all that takes pretty much 2 years, and I got through all of that and did well and learned a ton. It was very, very hard work. And, so nuke power machinist mates, you're an operator and a maintainer. Most, for those who don't understand that piece, but you learn how to both operate whatever the workstations that you get assigned to and qualify, but you also have to know how to do certain maintenance on the equipment. So a lot of the fluid systems, as a machinist mate, between the steam and the water systems and air systems, that was all fell under the Nuke Power. So that's what you trained on. And you actually qualified an operating nuclear power plant. And I did that in Saratoga or Ballston Spa, Saratoga Springs area of New York, and qualified on 2 workstations. And the Navy does that. So when the operators go to sea and qualify on the seagoing operating plant, they know, they know how to do it. They know the process, because it's a pretty startling process to go through that. It's pretty intense. There's a zero mistake mentality that has to be there in operating a new power plant. So great lessons there, and understanding how to maintain, how to learn, right? How to train and learn is different than the book learning, how to learn on your feet, and, getting burned by, hot pipes and all that.
Yeah, well, that'll get your attention, right? When it's high risk, life threatening environment, if you don't pay attention, you either get irradiated or you die. Or if you're in a submarine, you could, die a very horrible death, right? So when you say it was very hard work, do you mean that it was, hard from a intellectually challenging perspective, or both, or maybe just the grind and the pace, and you were probably going from book to practical, or how did that work?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, because it was really all of it. There were long days, and the material was difficult, and then you had to take the head knowledge and apply it to physically going out there doing it and demonstrating that you had that knowledge to the trainers, right? Who were merciless, because they didn't want to pass anyone off to the fleet from their perspective that was not going to, step up to the cause. And it was challenging. I had maybe the book smarts, that was always easy, but transitioning that took me a little while. And I ended up being the second person out of 20 to finish the qualification in my group. It was S3G was the name of the plant that I was qualifying in. It was an old submarine engine room that they take off. Those who don't know, they take them off submarines and carriers and set them up ashore, and then you run them. So anyways, the whole thing, combining the whole thing, being able to do the intellectual piece, being able to do the physical piece, think on your feet, explain it. You had to demonstrate by explaining, talking through what you're doing. It was fantastic. I was working 12, 14-hour days. You'd work 7 days of days, have a couple of days off, work 7 days of afternoons, have a couple of days off, and 7 days of nights. So every 28 days, you work 21 days. Sounds nice, having all 7 days off, but you slept about 5 of those.
Had to catch up from lost sleep time. Well, I mean, and truly, have you ever experienced a learning environment apart from nuclear power that has been as intense or as productive a learning experience?
I don't think so. I mean, even going, so it was picked up from there for ROTC at Michigan. Go Blue. Though not do that. I had to get that in. Others.
Go Big Ten. Yeah.
We can agree on Go Big Ten. But that was always wanted to go to Michigan as a kid, and but also got picked up for the Naval Academy and wanting to be, Top Gun, going, Mach 3 with my hair on fire. I thought I had a better chance of being a pilot at the Naval Academy. We saw how that worked out, but I had to choose between the two. And in Navy fashion, they told me on Monday, and I had to decide by Friday, so I'm a 19-year-old kid, a couple years out of high school, and had to decide what I wanted to do with my life in 4 days. And so ended up going to the Naval Academy from there. And even the Naval Academies, and other ongoing schools, done master's programs, and none of the learning environments have been as intense, or even learning, different roles in the job world. But it gave me confidence that I could go after and learn anything and do anything and persevere through that. There's a way. So it was great all around that the Nuke Power pipeline. It washes out quite a few people. It's a small percentage that make it all the way through.
And congratulations on getting through that. It's a testament to your character and your grit, especially at a young age, right? I mean, I don't know how many people are chosen to go into Nuke Power these days and what the washout rate is, but I know certainly in dive school and EOD and BUD/S, there's a whole prep program now to get kids that are coming out of coming out of nice homes or bad homes or whatever, going into the Navy to help them not wash out, to really get them in shape, and I don't know if they're doing that with Nuke Power today or not, just getting them ready to go. But perhaps that's the way this generation is making it through. I do want to say one thing: you probably would have had more fun at Michigan based on my experience at Penn State in ROTC. I felt both envious and a little bad for the guys from the Naval Academy that I met on cruise, or the in between. For folks who don't know, in between excuse me, the years you get to go out and try out some stuff for a month in the real Navy, and it's all good though. But that's quite an accomplishment, and I guess the aviation program doesn't. Well, maybe they do care a little bit on where your pipeline, where you come from, but they care more about that you have natural 20/20 visions for a long time and can make it through all the tests and the school and everything.
The NAMI WAMI, Naval Aviation Medical Institute, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, is that what it's called?
You don't pass that, right? Then you could make it all the way through and you'd be there at flight school, and in your first week and still get washed out medically. That was always
that's the whammy.
I was there as a backseater, right? And I wasn't worried about my eyesight. I wasn't wearing glasses. They gave me these glasses, Rich, because it was very, very slight, but it was enough to not be there. But there's all the pilots, they're doing eye drops and they're getting themselves ready before their eye test. And I'm reading the newspaper. I don't care. I'm a backseater, right? We're all sitting in the queue waiting to go in to see the eye doctor. I'm reading.
I love it.
Back with my feet up, reading a newspaper, and they're all getting their eyes ready so they don't get kicked out of flight school the first week.
That's hilarious. But that's part of this show too. I mean, just getting some of the real life experiences and some of those stories, which you're not going to hear anywhere else, but that's great. And I think one of the themes that we're finding throughout, whether it's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, I haven't interviewed any Marines yet on this podcast. So if there are any Marines out there in the civilian world that want to be on this podcast, please let me know. But one of the themes is the training, the intensity, the sort of global ability for the service to create training that's meaningful, that's applicable, that's real time, that cements concepts and activities rapidly for a very broad segment of the population is second to none. I think that's coming out as really perhaps one of the best adult learning systems ever to be created. I don't know, maybe that's a stretch, but it seems that that's a common theme amongst all the folks that I'm talking to, you notwithstanding, right? So it's cool. Okay, so Nuke Power, and then to the Naval Academy, and then did you go to the flight school pipeline after that? And that's where you kind of got hung up a little bit and changed?
So the flight school pipeline, and it's right when the of course the end of the Cold War, and Bill Clinton comes in, and there's a the BRAC is in full force, and the military downsizing is in full force, and here we are. We're the last class that started, my class, that was like sized for the Cold War. The largest Naval Academy class, ROTC was the largest, it was like full bore Reagan Cold War build up.
600 ship Navy, right?
Right. And so, but that wasn't needed anymore. And so there's a whole bunch of us going in, and they were quietly letting people leave at that time from flight school. If you just want to go and your commitment's done. We'll sign you off. And
Wow.
those of us who were sticking around, everything was moving very, very slow because the slots were getting smaller to go to. And it just got too slow for just, I don't get where, for me and my new wife and, what we saw as our life going forward, that was just a little too slow of a process. So started talking to leadership about what options were, and ended up going surface warfare. So the traditional Navy driving ships, Hayes Gray and underway, and made it on a frigate, USS Carr, FFG 52. Just a fantastic experience, spending 3 years on board there as the ordnance officer. So I had, as a weapons officer, would be kind of another name of it, but I had all the major weapon systems on board, with the missile launcher, the big gun, the fire control systems for both, and so had some really
torpedoes.
Did not have. There was
no torpedoes.
We had torpedoes, but I did not have that piece.
Okay.
So yeah, we had side launch torpedoes because the frigate, for those who don't know, is a submarine, anti-submarine warfare primarily platform. It's a picket ship for the carrier battle groups at the time. But so we had the torpedoes, and of course the big pieces, helo detachment that had two helo jets, or two helicopters, and the pilots and maintenance crew on there. So. But having those gun systems, and the CIWS, of course, which everybody loves watching the videos of online.
Oh, the R2D2. Yeah. Not so friendly like R2D2, right?
That's a maintenance nightmare. Something that a chain fed gun that shoots 6,000 rounds per minute likes to jam a lot. Yeah. So it was a fantastic experience. And that's where I really learned like leading maintainers. So I had gunner mates and fire controlmen that maintained and ran, when we went to weapon stations, they both maintained and then were, watch standers for that equipment. And any of that stuff goes down, it's not working, and you're not mission ready. The whole ship is not mission ready. You don't just like somewhat down. Yeah. Casualty report, CASREP. It's the highest level, and it goes to the admiral, and that's when the captain gets to say, yeah, my ship can't do the mission. So I got pretty good at writing those, because anytime something would break,
mission compromised. Moody.
Nobody wrote more CAD reps than me, because an aging ship with these control boards on the fire control system were massive, and something burns out on that, and you didn't have all of that. I learned about what the importance of spare parts, the importance of preventative maintenance, and finding that stuff before it became a problem. It was a great learning experience, and being organized, right? Having the materials, having the equipment, and the training. Just fantastic experience and a lot of fun. So that was 3 years out of Norfolk, Virginia, and just learned a ton there. That for sure.
Oh, that was good. I was stationed out of Little Creek as well, in the similar time frame. Reagan outgoing, Clinton coming in, decommissioned 2 ships in the 4 years that I was on active duty, 2 small boys, but yeah. And I was on the McCloy. That might have been a sister ship to yours. I think it was 50, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. It's pretty close. So
it was
probably within the same year.
Yeah, it was a midship. It was summer cruise between summer cruise, right? The type of cruise you really want to go on with all the lights and all you can eat and drinks and stuff like that, right? But it was 6 weeks between junior and senior year, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, pick up the boat at Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico, go to St. Thomas, go to Bermuda, do some NATO operations with foreign navies, Canada and whatnot, hit St. John's, Newfoundland, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Boston on the 4th of July, and then back to Newport. It was custom made for a midshipman cruise, but it might have been a sister ship from the one that you were on.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. So what happened after Norfolk? Did you go into the reserves there? Or did you go to another ship or?
So I left active duty. Yeah, they had kind of, I had that don't know what the time is, the time of not really moving forward in flight school or waiting for flight school and kind of moving forward in flight school. So where I should have been through two C tours, or my two first tours as a surface warfare officer, I was only through one. And so they had other, opportunities for me, but they weren't great. And my wife and we'd made a decision to move on. So I left active duty. I did not go in the reserves right away.
Okay.
This is a piece in just understanding that transition well, what that transition means. It was a point where the late 90s, so the economy was doing great. People were getting out and making more money than they were, or at least they thought, than they were in the military, because you got to really put the whole package together and understand all those benefits you have on active duty and what that means. So it was exciting times that everybody was getting out and making more money and whatnot. And I decided to go after I thought I was going to be the next financial robber baron. So I went into financial sales with Edward Jones.
The Wolf of Wall Street. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
But wanted to, all joking aside, wanted to do something different in what I thought would be challenging and a good fit. I felt like I'm a people person, as the saying goes. I can talk to people and convince them to do things, convince them to buy products, whatever it might be. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was a shocking experience, going from a team atmosphere of the military, where you have like people around you, you're mission oriented, you're going hard in the operational aspect of being at sea. We won 2 Battle E's, for those who don't know that piece, as a old beat up frigate going against the newer ships that were in our squadron. We really took it to them and did well in competing against our squadron peers, and won 2 Battle E's in a row. And so we went hard. So I had a really great team concept, and then going into being a rep for Edward Jones, and you're all alone. It's a single rep office. You have a front office person who manages the phones and helps with your appointments and that. And you're out meeting people and trying to sign people up for accounts and manage their money for them. And it was a shocking experience. I did well enough with that, was making money at that. And, the rule is you got to get, 5 years into it to really do well. And I was miserable. It was just it's too much of a change, and it wasn't a good.
So a question about the transition. What sort of preparation did you have? I mean, I know I went through the TAP classes. I don't remember them that well. I do remember getting connected with a junior military officer recruiting firm, which sort of took us to an embassy suites, and it was a round robin of interviews, and lots of people, corporations, were looking for former military officers because of the discipline, because of the self-starting, whatever, to be salespeople. It sounds like you entered the financial sales realm or business management realm too from that. I made it more than 2 years at my first job, but it wasn't much longer. It was about 4-ish, and it wasn't solo for sure. I started in an organization that was selling industrial lubricants, and oddly enough, I've sort of bounced around in that career for the remainder of my career year to date. But yeah, so how was that transition process? Did you probably went to the same thing in Norfolk that I went
to? The TAPS program. It had the JMO recruiters, that multiple ones, and went to probably at least 3 of those kind of embassy suites, kind of round robin. And that was, and they put you in front of a range of people. And I had actually multiple offers coming out of that. I mean, my very first one, I kind of crashed and burned. It was, I don't think I got a single offer or follow-up interview out of it. Maybe one follow-up interview, but no job offers came out of that first one. But kind of figured things out, went back to the drawing board on how you interview and how you present your military skills to civilians. Even though they knew what they were getting into, you still had to demonstrate, to the interviewers that you could be a fit, culture thing, and that what you did in the military could translate to what they wanted in the roles that they were hiring for. And so, I learned cracked that nut and learned how to do that, and got multiple offers over the next 2 rounds, but none of them really were what I wanted or fit with what we were trying to do. And actually, it was just got referred from a friend from the civilian world to Edward Jones.
Oh, okay.
Didn't even use that path and went down there. So I don't regret. I learned a ton about financial management and the markets.
Not a bad thing to know, right?
Packet, yeah. Pocket. And I mean, I don't want to say that Edward Jones did not. I don't want to disparage him. Edward Jones, has consistently been ranked as one of the best employers. And they, at the time, were much smaller, but they've grown into the largest financial, as far as number of reps out there, like distinctly larger. Their model is more broad. They go after smaller investors and not just looking to go to the big investors. They really service a lot of people. So they do things right. They train right, and then they have support that's remote, and then you go to regional kind of things. But it was that one man band thing was tough. It was very stark contrast to the military team atmosphere.
Well, and it goes to the surroundings that you're in the military, right? One team, one goal. Everybody's fighting for the same mission, Battle E awards, best in the squadron, that type of thing. And then getting out, I mean, it may be a better fit for some of these special forces operators that get jumped,
Sure.
dropped in the jungle somewhere, or into the mountains, and they kind of go and they do their thing. That might be more of a fit for somebody like that. Not that, I mean, you did it for a couple of years. Not that I couldn't do it, but you said it was shocking, right? So it was a dramatic departure from where you were.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was, that, in advice to those who are making that transition, really understanding, what the new role is and how that compares, and, where understanding yourself and knowing yourself. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that maybe later, but that was a piece where maybe I didn't do the right inventory of my own skill sets and wants and desires and what makes me tick. Really understanding what made me tick, and in the operations world that I've lived most of my civilian career, and I didn't really understand that well at the time.
Well, and it's hard, right? I mean, it's hard. I'm just reflecting on those times now that you bring it up, because, well, I think it everything was harder when it was back in the old days, right? We had to walk uphill to school both ways in the snow.
Yeah.
But I mean, all the tools. I mean, I don't remember doing any research on any of the companies that I was interviewing with. I would, if you went through a similar experience that I did, you got a brief that was either the night before, the day of. Here are the 5 people that you're interviewing with, and they're 5 copied sheets of paper in a folder of like about this company and blah blah blah. I mean, today, if you're going to an interview, man, you can research it. You could customize, your resume, not to fake it, but just to, use the right terminology that connects the dots between where you were and
different times. Yeah. The Al Gore's interweb at the time was much slower.
You were part of that. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Maybe that's a Nuke Power decoder ring that you got when you left. But yeah, interesting. Well, good stuff, Mike. Yeah. So let me see where we're at here. I'm just looking at the list of questions that we typically run through. I think we've talked about transitioning from the service. I mean, what do you miss from that? What jobs are you attracted to? You talked a little bit about that. And how did your military experience help help with your civilian career? What do you miss, and how did your experience help when it seems like you found the groove in operations, supply chain, that
Yeah.
type of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. In there, I did teach a little bit,
Okay.
and coached, which was, it got back to more the team thing. And, ultimately
Leadership. Yeah.
yeah. And, in saying that, understanding how much leadership's involved in being a good teacher. Um, it's, it's massively important, for well-run classrooms that help inspire kids and take them it's the same, take them from a place where, their knowledge and their inspiration is lower in that subject matter, and helping them connect to it and learn it and grow with it is a similar kind of thing in leading, right? You got to move people from a spot where they're performing at level X, and you got to go X plus 10%, right? And finding a way to get them there. It's very, very similar skill set. And I would say it's leadership. And that was fantastic. And I had the legacy of my mom was a teacher, and dad. And there's a little bit of, just loving sports. As an
Sure.
intramural hero at Navy, made championships, and tried a bunch of different sports and had fun with that. And just always loved. And even in my advancing years, try to get out and play some basketball yet now and again.
Was that your sport of choice then, basketball?
It was my, I did a number, but basketball was probably had the most success at, if you could call it that. But yeah, so I go out there and play with some older guys now and again, hurt myself. So, but it was fun to coach and lead a team and lead young people forward, and being able to come together as a team and play the game better. So I did that for a few years before finally making my way into supply chain. And so the leadership piece, has been massively important to each of the career steps. And just, it's a never ending journey, right? Leadership is the way I view it. You can't stop learning. You're going to learn from the people that you work for and the people that work for you, and that your peers. You got to constantly have your eyes open to finding new ways to approach that, and appreciate, differences in culture that you have in different businesses, as well as just the differences in the individuals. That differentiated leadership concept, maybe it wasn't talked about when we were young JOs, but that's important, because everybody's at a different spot, and appreciating where they're at and how to get them move forward is important to be a success. Because as leaders, we don't succeed if our team doesn't succeed. I don't move boxes throughout this distribution center. I don't put them onto trucks and get them to the stores so the company can make sales. A lot of other people do that, and I got to help them be better and better at that. And I don't succeed unless they are getting better and better. So those leadership skills have been very important to my growth and development, and different promotions through the years.
Well, and this is a resonating theme here too. Well, actually, the teaching has become, I think you're the third person that I've talked to, all Navy veterans that happens to be, but that have segued after active duty into some sort of teacher. Was it math or science?
I did both math and science,
okay,
at a middle school level and one high school level. So yeah, it was. I enjoyed both. Yeah, but yeah, the math and science, which of course schools are dying for, right? And a lot of folks with some sort of technical background in the military, can do that. I know I never did it in the military, but being instructors, where you learn how to teach. I think there's a lot of great instructor programs that exist out there for knowing folks that have gone through that, and it is satisfying. And if you stick with teaching long enough, you can make a good living at it. Just knowing, that's the other thing, that self-inventory, knowing what makes you tick, and where you want to be and your goals for you and your family. Right? We had other goals for the family, and that was kind of the transition from the military that, involved having to take on, wanting to take on more challenging roles that were more financially rewarding, but also more, for me, more stimulating, intellectually stimulating and challenging. So there's multiple reasons that I left teaching and made that transition to manufacturing initially, but it's into supply chain and operations.
Well, yeah, and a couple of things you said, and you said it really beautifully. We don't win as leaders if the team doesn't win. I mean, you're not moving the boxes around the warehouse and the distribution center. I mean, you got 600 something people that are working in your domain, right? And as a young junior officer, you had to stand on the deck place with people that were 5, 10, 15, 20 years older than you, and sort of deliver the news, good or bad, the plan of the day, what's happening, and all that type of stuff. So I think anybody coming out of the military has a certain leadership training. And the other consistent theme that you mentioned is lifelong learning. I mean, that the learning process that you went through at Nuke Power School and then through the Naval Academy and on board ship, I think has some sort of quick reward mechanism, like rapid improvement or promotion at younger levels, certainly on the officer level, but on the enlisted level as well, working your way towards self-actualization as a leader. So fantastic. So okay, so you transitioned, you've gone from the Navy to financial services to teaching and coaching, and then in operations, and leadership was really important to you. So what else? I know you gave me some other, when we spoke the other night, you've dabbled in a couple interesting other options, especially during COVID. So other sort of interesting experience.
Talk about that here. Would that bring your your listenership down here? I don't know. Maybe it could be a teaser for getting people to click in and listen.
Well, I think there are a tremendous amount of veterans that are either inspired to be entrepreneurs or are led in that direction. Another thing you said earlier too was the network piece, that your family network that kind of got you into, I don't know if it was the first job or the second job, but massively important for veterans to lean on coming out of the service. But yeah, I mean, wide open, dude. I mean,
okay.
I think people would be interested in that. I thought it was interesting, but yeah.
No, I'm being coy. So I just brush over. I did go after a 3-year inactive time period. I did go in the reserves, and that's where Eric, you and I met.
Yep.
We were at the same command and did some challenging and fun exercises together, as well as the regular weekend drills. But after retiring from the reserves in 2015, I have a brother-in-law who encouraged me for multiple years in a row to come work with him, and he was getting into the both medical cannabis as well as the hemp CBD industry. And I said, that's fascinating. It's interesting. Happy for you, and brushed him off for multiple years. And then it got to a point where he really needed some operational help and was standing up a processing facility for hemp. It was like a real deal. The first hemp CBD processing facility in Pennsylvania. And he needed help getting it.
First legal one. Yeah. So that actually had modern machinery. Right.
So, hey, this might be a connection in my network, but state representative is a Marine Corps vet, wounded vet, is a farmer, and might have to connect you with him, but was,
Sure.
advocating for Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, and trying to get it set up there. And I worked to help get the facility and getting the equipment together and installed and putting together the lab. We lost our chief science officer to cancer in the middle of all this. And so I had to hire a doctor of chemistry and get consulting to really get our processes together. And we put together the first CBD isolate processing facility in Pennsylvania. And, we're part of that craze that was, that is a little bit of wild, wild west, and, very entrepreneurial kind of thing, very out there on the edge, different than anything I'd done before, away from big companies, having been with GE and Toys R Us and some other smaller companies, but companies, that actually had good revenue and paid paychecks into a company that is going to make
benefits. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it was very exciting and challenging. And the market ended up getting oversaturated rapidly with producers and growers, because we grew hemp as well, which is a whole interesting thing. When you smell like cannabis all the time, it's in your skin because you're working with the plant. I never knew that's what I was getting into, but all of our employees would drive around with our hemp, our licenses, our permits, so that people understood what we were working with, that if the police pulled you over, you weren't driving around with its hitting cousin. You were actually working with the sober cousin of hemp. So,
I didn't even know there was such a thing. So, look what we're learning today.
Low, very, very low in THC, right? So it's the sober cousin. It helps with your aches and pains and your anxiety, right? Now it doesn't get you high. So, but yeah, so that business ended up, I don't know how many, but very few of the processors made it through that unscathed without going through bankruptcy or something of the sort. And we had to close doors because there was like a 90% reduction in the market value of the end product. And that put us upside down on our margins. It just was not able to go forward. And that transitioned into an end business, though, of trying to make energy shots with CBD, or nighttime relax shots with CBD. And we had some okay beginnings on the sales, but it was slow and moving, and the customers weren't ready yet. The market wasn't ready for ingestibles. The FDA was not clear on, like, can you sell CBD that goes into your body? Well, they weren't saying no, they weren't saying yes. And
didn't help, probably, right?
Yeah. Went into a regular energy shot company, and a shameless plug out there, Camo Energy. It's still out there. For those in the world of Casey's General Stores, they're out there in Casey's all throughout the Midwest, and quite a few places all throughout West Virginia, which is where the company's out of, and through the Southeast. It's growing slowly, but help set up the supply chain on that. But it's not big enough for something to support, multiple families at this point. It's more of a sales and slow growth and business now. And so I made the transition to working with Rite Aid and getting back to the DC world that I'd been in before. So that it's still out there. So Camo Energy.
That's all good. Look, and you survived, and you didn't go into deep depression or the bottle or anything like that. You picked yourself up, and here you are. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Mike. I mean, I think it's really it's all this is very interesting, but it's courageous, right, to do stuff like that. And it's another thing that veterans bring to the table. So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to any service member planning to transition to the civilian world that you wish you had when you made that move?
Yeah, so understanding your strengths and weaknesses, really doing a good, I used the term before, a self-inventory, and finding the right way to really understand what makes you tick. What do you want to do, and where you want to go? And really start with that. Recruiters are going to come to you, especially right now, for folks who are transitioning right now, or even going from first job to second job out of the military. They do a lot of the square peg in a round hole. They have a job that they want to fill because they're going to get a commission when they fill that. And they might try to, yeah, you can do this. Yeah, I believe in you. You'll succeed. And it might not be really what matches with what makes you tick. And so really understand your strengths and weaknesses. The other side of it, though, is know that there's no perfect job out there. right? Everything's going to have pros and cons. And, having that good self-inventory to saying, hey, how much of these pros and cons, how well does it align? Am I willing to accept the cons that come with this? Are the pros strong enough that they really make sense to me? Because you want to be inspired to a degree. And I'm not the, find your meaning, that it's something bigger than that. It's work, right? There's going to be a grind to it. There's going to be people you don't like at work. There's going to be challenges, just like in the military. It's don't build it up that it's all those many problems that you're complaining about, or maybe you don't like about the military, are going to go away. They're just going to be a little bit different. And, you're not going to have the same, even if you go into something that is more team oriented, it's not going to be the same. So understanding that piece of it is, and being ready for that. You're going to lose some of that team support. So find ways to engage with, other vets and family and whatnot, because you're not going to have that same team aspect. And be prepared for that. I'd say would be the other piece. Be prepared for the fact that it's not going to be the same way. There's going to be a lot of people who are really out for themselves, but there's also going to be folks who are going to be good teammates at your whatever business or job you end up going to.
Yeah, seek them out, right? Seek them out and learn about people. So did you find that you came back into the Navy, into the reserves, because you were missing that piece of it, or you wanted
Absolutely.
to? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I cut you off there, but yeah, absolutely. That was it. The team piece and just being able to get back and be involved and serve. There was just the Stark piece of the Edward Jones, and then it really made me want to try to do something more. And I got back in 2001, pre 9/11. It was like March. I started talking to folks in the reserves, the full-time support folks, and finding the recruiters that at the time, finding a spot to go into where I could drill. And that was all about that. It was all about finding that team and getting back and getting involved. I wasn't really certain whether I wanted to make a career of it at that point, but I wanted to get back and do something.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, and understanding that you're going to miss some of that, and certainly romanticize the most of the good times in the Navy, and forget about a lot of the bad times and all that type of stuff. But being able to transition that service component to something that makes you happy, right? Is in a culture that where you can grow, where you're supported, and all that type of stuff. So that's great advice. Thanks, Mike. And then on the flip side of that, I'm sure you've hired a bunch of folks. And what sort of advice would you give to corporate hiring managers about veterans that they need to know to get the best fits for the positions that they're seeking to fill?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I thought a long time about this on what's the best thing, because I've been going up to or my team, and we've been trying to recruit from Fort Drum, which is an hour and a half or so away from where we're at. That's the base that's nearby, and trying to get some Army vets. Haven't quite any success yet. We've talked to a few folks, and they haven't matched. And knowing what I know, and trying to talk with my HR team, and my recruiters, and on how they find good fits for what we want. And we're operations here, and it's not rocket science in the DC. You get into some technical things, but it's not like it's a very, very difficult thing to train to. So I think appreciating both the leadership aspect, because there's a leadership need that exists at all the levels, in the military. No matter what, you talked about it. You pretty early on, almost everyone gets thrown into it, unless you rarely avoid the point where you're responsible for someone else and need to lead someone else. And appreciating that leadership that's going to be there, that might not show in a resume, but know that it's there. And the other piece is that folks who know how to be dedicated to a purpose, that we all hunger for when we're hiring. Especially today, I think about this. There's, what do they call it? The
great resignation. Yeah.
It's like folks are just like, I'm not really committed to this job, and I feel free to go and just change. And people are moving in a hurry, and we're all so hungry to get someone new. We're like, yeah, I know you're only there 2 months or 6 months, but what would be a red flag before, they're taking folks. But you're gonna get somebody that knows how to be dedicated and dedicated to the purpose that you have there. I think better chances. Not every transitioning veteran is a hero and is coming out with a Medal of Honor and is gonna. There's varying degrees, but in general, if we can generalize here, and I think we can, that we all get that understanding of being dedicated to a higher purpose, and that team aspect, and don't underestimate that. I think about successful folks that I've hired and have as on my team, and I'd rather have that dedicated person versus somebody that's 10 degrees higher on the IQ scale and is going to leave me or not give me the full measure and not help lead his team forward or her team forward, right? I'd rather have that dedicated person. So don't underestimate that piece. And I know we use a lot of these systems anymore that sort through resumes.
Sure. Yeah.
Try to find a way to get past that and really give consideration to folks. And probably the final thing for those is try to find reach out to military so you can translate and understand, because you might not see it in the resume, but where you can translate and understand what that means. Yeah, what kind of team did they lead if they're in that kind of role? Because not everybody builds good resumes, and we got to find ways to get past that to get good people in on the teams. And I think that resonates more than ever today. We're all hungry to find folks to round out our teams. I've got several open positions now. Rite Aid, Liverpool, New York.
So if people want to contact you after this, I guess they can find you on LinkedIn or yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn.
No,
that's Michael Moody.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great, Mike. And it's all good here, right? So leadership is so sorely needed in all aspects of our society. I mean, it's most especially in organizations that are doing good and they're trying to do the right thing and move the ball forward and help everybody out. I mean, Rite Aid is no different. I mean, you're getting medicine to people, over-the-counter drugs, making sure. I mean, COVID's probably been really a very interesting time to be in this position. I mean, we all have pieces and components of making it all work, and I think folks with broader leadership experience and understanding can help not only get veterans stay out of the homelessness or tending towards suicide, but just help everybody in America get back together again on a common goal and platform. But anyway, this has been fantastic, Mike. You're a true American. I always enjoy talking to you, and it's been too long. If I get up to Syracuse or Pittsburgh, I'll certainly give you a ring so maybe we can share a beer and tell some old stories about the first time I held hands with a man was of course in the Navy in Italy, and happened to be a Moroccan officer. And when we got up to go to dinner, agriturismo, which was just a cultural thing.
Yes.
He was showing me that he felt like we were friends, but when he grabbed my hand and I didn't expect it, that was a learning. And of course, you guys, gave me a lot of guff after that, but it was all good. It was all good.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was great. I talk about that agriturismo, and I've given people that know they're traveling to Sicily, I've given them given them where it's at, and that was fantastic food. Oh my gosh.
No better food, no shortage of it either. Without a doubt.
Very small portions of each of the courses. Yes.
You got to take your time, pace yourself.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time, buddy, to help us on this. And like you mentioned, LinkedIn, Mike Moody, any other socials or any other thing? Is that's
Yeah, I'm not really big on otherwise, but as far as this goes, I'd love just put it out there. Anybody wants, reach out to me just for advice, coaching, counseling, whatever. Just pick my brain. I'm out there. I love helping other vets find their way. I've stumbled at times, and grace of God, been able to find my way forward. And just and a lot of good people. I want to help because a lot of folks have helped me along the way. I don't want to underestimate that piece of it. It helped give me advice. And Eric, I appreciate what you're doing here. This is fantastic. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I joke about even if it helps one, but even if it does help one, whatever I have to say that helps somebody make a better decision and help them transition. I got a brother that's retired from the Army as well, and he's had his own challenges and successes, and I've learned from that, and I know that he's experienced things that are let's face it, Navy Reserves, we didn't have the same challenges as Army and Marine Corps did, who were every 3 to 5 years we're going back in the sandbox and on some forward operating base and seeing some tough times. So anything I could do to help out another vet, folks who are having a tough time, just I'm out there, reach out. LinkedIn is open there, and I'll do what I can.
Oh, that sounds good, Mike. Thank you again. And if your brother wants to talk to anybody on about any post-traumatic stress or anything, don't forget about 220.org. Very, very solid organization. I'm doing volunteer peer coaching for that, and they're having remarkable results at helping people out with that. So so just since you mentioned it, I figured
he's actually doing similar things, and I want to where he's helping through years he found for the PTSD, and he found, and I'm not going to remember the name of it right now, but an organization of vets helping vets who had been through it, and it was fantastic for him. It really helped him get to a better spot. And now he's doing the same and helping other vets. Just there's so many resources out there. And there's so many vets who want to help our brothers and sisters out. Don't hesitate. You are not alone.
Sounds good, my friend. It's a good way to wrap it up. I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you. And thank you to Mobius for providing this platform to help both transitioning vets as well as those looking to hire them in the field of maintenance and reliability. Have a great night, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Veterans Connected. We will see you back for another episode very soon. In between, we hope to see you in the Veterans Connected community group, where you can meet Eric and fellow podcast guests and share with other industry veterans at MobiusConnect.com. And we hope to see you there.